Can I tell you something that most people in church won't say out loud? Knowing God doesn't automatically fix your bank account. But here's the part that actually matters. It fixes something deeper, something that your bank account depends on far more than you realize. And once that thing shifts, the financial stuff starts to move in ways that feel almost impossible to explain unless you've lived it. This video isn't about prosperity theology. It's not about sowing seeds or claiming abundance. It's about something quieter, more real, and honestly, more powerful than any of that. It's about how a changed inner life produces a changed outer life, every time, without exception. Let's get into it. Here's a question I want you to sit with for a second. Why do two people with the same income end up in completely different financial positions 10 years later? Same city, same opportunities, maybe even the same job. But one of them has built something: savings, investments, options, breathing room. And the other is still running the same stress cycle they were running a decade ago. It's not luck. It's not even intelligence. It's the decisions they made when nobody was watching. The small, daily, almost invisible choices about how to spend, how to save, how to respond when fear showed up, how to behave when temptation did. And those decisions, every single one of them, came from their inner life, their beliefs, their emotional state, their relationship with uncertainty and the future. That's the conversation we need to have. Because until you understand that your finances are downstream of your psychology, you'll keep trying to fix the wrong thing. Let me be honest with you about something. Most people who struggle financially aren't struggling because they lack information. You can Google how to budget in 30 seconds. The information is free. It's everywhere. It's not complicated. The problem isn't knowledge. The problem is behavior, and behavior is driven by emotion. Think about the last time you made a financial decision you regret. I'm not talking about a bad investment with real research behind it. I'm talking about the impulsive kind, the I'll figure it out later kind, the I deserve this right now kind. What were you feeling in that moment? Stressed? Overwhelmed? Bored? Inadequate? Trying to feel something good because everything else felt heavy? Yeah, that's not a budgeting failure. That's an emotional response that happened to involve money. And this is exactly the territory where a real relationship with God starts to do something that no financial course can do. It changes what's happening inside you before the decision even gets made. What knowing God actually means here. I want to be careful with this phrase, knowing God, because I'm not talking about going to church more. I'm not talking about reading your Bible every morning as a box you tick before breakfast. I'm talking about something that actually changes you, the kind of knowing that produces stillness in situations that used to produce panic, the kind that makes you feel, somewhere underneath all the noise, that you are held, that you have a future, that you are not one bad week away from being completely undone. That's not religious language. That's a psychological state. And that psychological state has enormous, measurable, real-world consequences for how you handle money. Here's why. When your nervous system is in a state of chronic anxiety, when survival mode is your default, your brain literally cannot think long-term. It's not a character flaw. It's neuroscience. The part of your brain responsible for planning, impulse control, and rational decision-making gets hijacked by the part that's just trying to manage the immediate threat. Stress makes you short-sighted. Peace makes you strategic. And if you can find a source of genuine, deep, grounded peace, the kind that holds even when circumstances are hard, you've given yourself one of the most powerful financial tools that exists. The first way it changes things: decision-making clarity. Let me give you a real scenario. You've been offered a new job. The salary is higher, but it's at a company you're not sure about. Something feels slightly off, but the money is real and your current situation is tight. What do? If you're operating from anxiety, you take it, because fear of staying where you are overrides the quiet instinct that says something isn't right. You need the certainty. You need the number. You say yes before you've thought it through. 6 months later, the company restructures. You're out. worse position than before. Now, same scenario, different inner state. You're not panicking. You feel unsettled, yes, but not desperate. So you pause. You ask better questions. You talk to someone who knows the industry. You trust your instinct that something's off. You either negotiate different terms or you say no and keep looking. That pause, those 3 extra days of clarity, might save you a year of setbacks. The decision isn't complicated. What changes is the state you're in when you make it. Clarity is the output of peace, and peace, in the deepest and most durable sense, is one of the core things that a real relationship with God builds in you over time. This isn't vague, it's practical, and it shows up in financial decisions constantly. The second way, peace reduces expensive mistakes. Here's something financial therapists have known for years that most money coaches ignore. A huge percentage of financial damage is done in small, repeated, emotionally driven moments. Not one catastrophic decision, 100 small ones. The coffees and takeaways you buy, not because you're hungry, but because you're overwhelmed. The online purchase at midnight you don't even remember making until it arrives. The subscription you signed up for during a bad week and forgot to cancel. The money you lent someone because saying no felt too uncomfortable. None of these are big, but they add up, quietly, consistently, and behind every single one of them, if you trace it back, is an emotional need that money was being asked to meet. Comfort, numbing, the temporary feeling of having something when everything else feels uncertain. Now, here's the pattern interrupt. What if that need for comfort started to get met differently? What if the anxiety that drives those decisions started to quiet down? Not because life got easier, but because your relationship with uncertainty changed. That's what happens when you genuinely build trust in something bigger than your circumstances. You stop needing to medicate with spending. Not all at once, this isn't overnight, but gradually the pull of impulsive spending weakens because the emotional hole it was trying to fill starts to close. And what's left? More money, not because you earned more, because you lost less to fear. The third way, long-term thinking becomes your default. This one might be the most powerful of all 3. Short-term thinking is the enemy of wealth, full stop. And short-term thinking comes from one place, not believing in your future. When you don't feel like tomorrow is secured, when you're not sure things will work out, when you feel like you're barely holding on, you naturally focus on right now, the immediate, the tangible, because the future feels too uncertain to invest in. This is why people in genuine financial hardship often make decisions that look irrational from the outside. Why someone deep in debt will still buy something small that brings immediate relief. Why a person living paycheck to paycheck might not be saving anything at all. It's not stupidity, it's survival psychology. When the future feels unsafe, your brain stops planning for it. Now watch what shifts when you start to genuinely believe, really believe, in your gut, that your life is moving towards something, that your story isn't over, that the same God who has carried you through hard seasons is still involved. You start to think in years instead of weeks. You start to delay gratification, not through willpower, but through perspective, because the future becomes real and worth protecting. You save because you believe you have a future worth saving for. You invest because you believe you'll be here to see the return. You build because you believe the building means something. That shift in orientation, from present-focused survival to future-focused intention, is one of the most significant financial changes a person can make, and it doesn't come from reading a finance book. It comes from a settled belief about who you are and where you're going. I want to tell you about a pattern I've seen again and again in people's stories. Someone grows up in financial instability, not extreme poverty, but enough insecurity that money becomes a source of anxiety from a young age. They learn, without anyone saying it explicitly, that money is unpredictable, that it comes and goes, that having it doesn't mean you'll keep it. So as an adult, they're a hard worker. They earn okay, but the money doesn't stay. It's like there's a ceiling. They get to a certain level, and then something always happens. The car, the emergency, the decision that made sense at the time, and there's this creeping suspicion underneath everything that maybe they're just not the kind of person who gets to have financial stability. Maybe that's for other people, people with different starts. That story, that belief, is running everything. It's shaping every financial decision at the subconscious level, and no budget app in the world is going to touch it. What changes? It is an identity shift, a deep internal rearrangement of who you believe you are and what you believe you're capable of. And honestly, for a lot of people, that shift happens through faith, through the slow, quiet work of building a relationship with God that tells you a different story about your worth, your future, and your capacity. Not in a cheesy way, in a, I started making slightly different decisions and they started compounding way. The budget came later. The discipline came later. First came the belief that the effort was worth making. Okay, here's the part I need to say, even though it might sting. A lot of people use faith as a reason to not engage with their finances. I'm trusting God. Okay, but are you tracking your spending? He provides. Great. But do you have a plan for what you do with what He provides? Spiritual trust and practical responsibility are not opposites. They're a team. Think about how a farmer works. They pray for rain, and then they till the soil, plant the seeds, tend the field, and prepare to harvest. They don't plant the seeds and then sit down and wait for God to do the rest. The prayer and the work exist together. Your finances work the same way. You can have deep peace and still do a monthly budget review. You can trust God's provision and still negotiate a better salary. You can believe He has a plan for your life and still have an emergency fund. In fact, and this is the real insight, your discipline with money is an expression of your faith in your future. Every time you save, you're saying, I believe tomorrow is real and worth preparing for. That's a spiritual act, even if it doesn't feel like one. There's someone watching this who has been financially embarrassed for years. Not just stressed, embarrassed. The specific, quiet shame of being asked a question about money and having to change the subject. Of watching friends talk about their investments while you're trying to figure out how to cover rent. Of feeling like everyone else got a manual for adulthood that you somehow missed. And it's starting to feel like a permanent state. Like this is just who you are now. Financially behind, financially confused, financially ashamed. I want to say something directly to that person. That shame is not a life sentence. It's a starting point. Every person who has ever built something financially did so from some starting point that felt inadequate. And the turning point for most of them wasn't a lucky break. It was the day they decided, really decided, that their financial story was still being written. You are not too late. Your past decisions are not your permanent address. And the version of you that handles money well, they exist. They're just waiting for the version of you that believes they're possible. That belief, that's the work. And it's spiritual work before it's financial work. Here's what I know to be true. God doesn't hand you a better financial life. He builds the kind of person who creates one. The character comes before the circumstances, always. Let's land this somewhere real. Here's what this looks like in practice, right now, this week. Step 1. Name your money emotion. Before you change one financial behavior, I want you to understand what you're feeling about money. Not thinking, feeling. When you open your banking app, what's the first thing that hits you? Dread? Shame? Numbness? That emotion is the starting point. Write it down without judgment. Just name it. Because you can't work with something you haven't acknowledged. And most people skip this step, go straight to budgeting, and wonder why nothing changes. Step 2. Start a 5-minute morning practice. Not a whole routine. 5 minutes. And here's what it contains. 30 seconds of stillness before you pick up your phone. A brief moment of genuine gratitude. Not forced, not a list, just one real thing, and 30 seconds of intentional focus on what you're building toward. That's it. You're doing 2 things here. You're reducing the baseline anxiety that drives impulsive decisions, and you're consistently reminding your brain that your future is real and worth thinking about. Do this every day for 30 days. Then watch how differently you feel when a financial decision shows up. Step 3. Make one future-focused financial move this week. Small, intentional, real. Open a savings account if you don't have one. Move a small automatic amount, even $10 or $20, into it on a recurring basis. Write down one financial goal for 12 months from now and put it somewhere visible. The amount doesn't matter yet. The declaration does. You're training yourself to believe in your own future by acting toward it. And over time, that action builds evidence, and evidence builds belief, and belief drives bigger decisions, and bigger decisions, compounded over years, change everything. Before, you were someone who believed financial change had to come from outside. A raise, a windfall, a miracle. Something had to land in your lap for things to shift. After, you understand that the outer life is always a reflection of the inner one, that peace changes decisions, that identity shapes behavior, that the financial life you want is the natural result of the person you're actively becoming. The miracle isn't the money. The miracle is the moment you stop being afraid of your own potential. Everything you build after that is just evidence of that one shift. Before this video ends, I want to leave you with one question. What's the story you've been telling yourself about your relationship with money, and where did that story come from? Because that story is running your financial life right now, whether you know it or not. And there's a video on this channel that goes directly into how those stories form, from childhood, from environment, from every experience that taught you money was either safe or dangerous, and exactly how to rewrite them. Not theoretically, practically, step by step. It's probably the most important video for where you are right now. Go find it, watch it tonight, and come back to your finances tomorrow with a completely different lens. Because you didn't land on this video by accident. Something in you is ready to stop playing small with money. And that something, it's been right all along. And remember to subscribe to this channel for more life-changing video like this one.